Hey everyone, Scott here to discuss the 2011 version of Fright Night, starring Colin Farrell, Anton Yelchin, Imogen Poots, Christopher Mintz-Plasse, Toni Collette, and David Tennant, directed by Craig Gillespie. Now, before I get into this movie, I've got to confess right now, I've never seen the original Fright Night, or that sequel, and the sequel that came after this movie. But maybe one day I will. But overall, I've seen this movie before in theaters when it was in 3D, and I'm gonna tell you something. When I see the images in this movie, they look better in 3D than they do in 2D, as far as I'm concerned. I'm not gonna lie right now. Let's get into the movie, and you'll see why. We open in a Las Vegas neighborhood where Adam Johnson is attacked and killed along with his parents by a vampire named Jerry, played by Colin Farrell, as we move on to daytime, where Charlie Brewster, played by Anton Yelchin, may he rest in peace, tries to get his bike started and chats with his neighbor Doris briefly, while Charlie's mother Jane, played by Toni Collette, chats with him about the mess on the neighbor's yard, and Amy, played by the wonderful Imogen Pooch, shows up giving Charlie a ride to school along with his friends. Mark, played by Dave Franco in an earlier world where I only recognized him as James Franco's brother, and Ben, and he ignores his best friend Ed, played by Christopher Mintz-Plasse, talking with Charlie about Adam is missing, or else he's going to put something on the internet that will humiliate him and the kids in this movie, as well as Jane, coming off rather pretentious and jerky. Although I like Imogen Poots in anything I see her in, is not the worst performance of hers. That's the 2019 version of Black Christmas. Night time comes all as Charlie, Jane, and Amy chat with the new neighbor Jerry, and Charlie goes to Adam's with Ed, and they decide to break in, which is a bad idea to begin with, as nobody is home and they're missing, while Ed talks about Jerry, as Jerry does sound like a ridiculous vampire name in my opinion. And the cinematography in this movie is kind of dark, but not completely like Aliens vs. Predator Requiem. But I really do like the performances by Colin Farrell, as he's a better vampire than Robert Pattinson in Twilight, as far as I'm concerned. Ed gets into Mark's neighborhood and tells him to hit him as he runs away quickly, and Jerry bumps into Ed, and as he breaks into a house, there were some pretty good 3D moments of breaking the window and the bucket flying through the screen, and Jerry gets in the house and kills Ed in the pool with another nice 3D moment and the cross falling towards your face. But unfortunately, I watched this in 2D for this viewing because I don't have a 3D TV anymore, and this scene was not greatly shot, but I'll give the 3D effects a compliment. And that is, it looks like it could be good. Charlie noticed Ed is not at school and goes to school and sees on the internet a video of Jerry as a vampire as he comes out at night, and Charlie comes home and bumps into Jerry as he and Charlie asks Charlie for a beer because he has a girl over and he grabs a six-pack and drops one of them on the ground, and it gives him a piece of advice to protect Jane and Amy. And there are a lot of bad people out there, and I like the monologue by Colin Farrell as he pulls off the menacing vampire tremendously, in my opinion. Amy tries to kiss Charlie, but he's distracted by his neighbor having Doris at his place, and he blows Amy off later, as he's hears screaming from Jerry's house, as he's led to believe Doris is in danger, and Charlie breaks into Jerry's house to look for Doris, as he gets proof that Jerry is a vampire by snapping a photograph. And Jerry gets home and he sees Doris and tries to get her out, but Jerry enters to bite her and turn her into a vampire. And as he leaves the room, Charlie tries to get her out without being seen, but is unsuccessful at two different things. One, he was seen, and two, Doris turns into ash and dies, and the 3D effects look pretty good in that scene. Charlie tells Jane Jerry is not invited in their house, and he looks up Peter Vincent, played by David Tennant, in the most hysterical performance in any movie I've seen him in. and goes to him for advice on vampire hunting. And Sofia Vergara's sister's character, Ginger, brings Charlie and Peter. And Peter is an asshole in this movie as he kicks Charlie out of his house because Charlie asks Peter questions really that really doesn't exist, meaning they're not real life. But remember, this movie is fiction, which is fine because vampires usually are fiction. And David Tennant is fucking hysterical in this movie. As Charlie gets home, Mark and Ben get killed by Jerry, and while Charlie prepares for something to happen, and Amy comes to the house and tries to explain what's happening, and Jerry comes to the door and threatens to take Charlie's crimes to the authorities and dogs up their backyard and blow up the fusions and to explode the house, and Jerry crashes them on the highway, which while an idiotic driver gets killed because he bumped their car, and this chase sequence is entertaining as I was going along with it. Charlie confronts Jerry with a cross, but he puts it on fire and blows it out as Jane stabs Jerry and faints, and Charlie and Amy takes Jane to the hospital, and Peter finds out Charlie was telling the truth while Amy confesses she likes Charlie for Charlie, and he's different from Mark and Ben, while Peter calls Charlie on the phone and he tells him with Amy how to defeat a vampire by an army, and a delivery comes to Peter's house. And as it turns out, it's Ed looking evil, so I'll call him Evil Ed for the rest of the movie as he enters, and Peter hides in the panic room, and Evil Ed's arm gets chopped off while Jerry bites a security guard, while Evil Ed finds Charlie and Amy, and they drop a shelf on Evil Ed, and he fights with Charlie, and Evil Ed is defeated by Amy, hitting him with a shovel, and Charlie makes him ash, while Amy sets up a gun to kill Jerry as he approaches her, and she shoots him, and eventually she throws holy water at Jerry, and they get out of to a party section as Charlie and Amy get split up, and Jerry catches up with Amy and by turn to become a damn vampire. And I'm thinking Charlie is fucked because Amy is going to fight Charlie from what I was led to believe. And remember, I haven't seen this movie in a long time, so I don't remember what happens to everybody by the end of the movie. Peter advises Charlie to kill the vampire, and he buys stuff to kill Jerry, the vampire. As he goes on the house, he gets sunlight in the house and tries to get Amy out of there, but is unsuccessful so far. And Peter arrives, and they go into an underground place, and Jerry appears, learning Peter's family killer was actually Jerry, as he tries to kill Peter, and he throws a pebble and releases some dead bodies, and Charlie finds Amy on the other side, and she almost bites him, but he stabs her in the stomach, and goes back for Peter, and gives the vampire sunlight, and Jerry stops Charlie and monologues until Jerry kisses Amy, while Charlie is watching and burns himself in disguise, and gets to Jerry and finds him and puts Jerry in sunlight, and stabs Jerry in the heart with a stake, and he ashes and dies as he saves Amy, Mark, and Ben, as well as a few others, and is knocked out for a second, and awakens as the movie ends with Charlie and Amy having intercourse at Peter's house, and Jane calls Charlie, and Peter rudely interrupts them to get his phone, and this climax is mediocre like this movie. While this maybe not director Craig Gillespie's best work, but at the end of the day, it was entertaining in my opinion. Now it's time for my rating. I'll give this movie a 5.5 out of 10. I do like the performances by Colin Farrell as he pulls off menacing vampire tremendously, and David Tennant, who was quite hysterical in this movie, and I do like Imogen Poots, as this is not her worst performance, as that belongs to the 2019 version of Black Christmas. But the other characters I did not care for as much, while the cinematography is kind of bad, but not as bad as Aliens vs. Predator Requiem, as far as I'm concerned. I do like some of the 3D shots as it looked 3D, despite this is a remake, but it does an okay job at telling the story, despite it's not original. While this might not be director Craig Gillespie's best work, but it was entertaining nonetheless. with a couple of great performances, at the end of the day, I thought the movie was just all right. It's not great. It's not a great movie by any means necessary, but I still had a good time with it. So it's a mild recommendation, as it's entertaining but not a great film, as it was mediocre. I'm just going to say that much. So I'd like to thank you guys for joining me, and next time I will be back with $1 Million Arm. And until then, let's kill some vampires.